Well, hey everyone. Find ourselves in California again with a good friend of mine, Al Ghous. Al and I have known each other for a number of years. In fact, we actually met as COVID was breaking out, and we were all running between meetings trying to find hand sanitizer and running around the Bay Area, figuring out what was going on. But we became very good friends and colleagues from that point. Al is CISO at a well-known company, as you all know, called Snapdocs, and has another interesting projects as well that I really want to explore and unpack tonight. But Al, before we begin in the detail and content, can you just share with us your background? Because your CISO kind of experience goes back a long way.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Been in the industry for about 25 plus years. I would say probably about 7 to 10 years of that has been in significant leadership roles, progressively leading up to head of security CISO for a few companies now. Most in the cloud environment, product related, infrastructure, platform, software as service. Um, Large companies such as GE and smaller late stage startups such as Snapdocs, ServiceMax, and a couple of others. All really focused on building programs if they don't exist. So a lot of greenfield environments, and in some cases, the company in hyperscale growth phase, really trying to scale existing programs to meet business objectives. Some of these companies are private equity owned, and so cost optimization is a big concern for them, big effort. Others, plenty of money to spend around, and so you're kind of like a kid in a candy store. So yeah, just ran the gamut. So that's where I am, and then on the side, we'll talk a little bit later. I've done some investment. With startups and doing advisory work as well.
The amount of fingers and pies you have it always leaves me quite stunned, actually. I don't know how you balance it all, but let's get straight into it then. When we were last chatting, we were talking about the things that were bugging you as a CISO, and it's really, really interesting because I love to ask that question, always get a different response. And you were referring to things that CISOs must do. And I kind of was thinking about that. And I was thinking, there are two types of musts, aren't there? There's must that you must do in your org, and there's must because of external influences that are really ramping up the CISO as well. Tell me a little bit about it at the moment, Al. What's on your mind? What's your musts?
Yeah, so you kind of hit the nail on the head. There's the must do's, there's the have to do, then there's the nice to haves. And right now in this day and age, with the economic situation and companies where they are with budgets and resources, you really have to figure out what those must do's are. And unfortunately for us, a lot of times they don't really jive or align with business objectives, right? If the
Mm.
business is saying, we're not going to build more products or more features, we're in sustain mode, but yet we still have to go generate ARR, then you must do the must do's because that's what the customers demand, right? So especially in industries where you're either highly regulated or you have clients and customers that are regulated and they just pass those requirements down to you. Those must do's have to be done, and sometimes the I have to do things have to be done as well. And unfortunately, like I said, they don't really align with core business objectives a lot of times. And so as CISOs, we have to navigate those, and it's not static. It's dynamic, even in an organization where they're just in sustain mode. Business dynamics change, partnerships change, and so you have to react. If nothing else, the adversaries will change, right? The attack surface changes, the threat vectors change, and so you have to be able to adapt. Security is not one of those things where you sit back and say, okay, I have my security posture, I'm happy with it, I'm not going to do anything with it for the next 6 months to 18 months. And that's never the case. And so there's a lot of education that has to happen with the leadership team and the board, explaining these things where you still have to keep the needle moving. You must do those must do's. You have to do some of those have do's because that's just the nature of the business, nature of cybersecurity and the adversaries. Again, especially in those companies like Snapdocs and some of the other companies that I've been to, where we have a lot of PII a lot of sensitive data that the adversaries would love to get their hands on. Yeah.
How do you, there's such a resolution, isn't there, between, you know, in a limited resource of both time, human power, financial, and that kind of triad of resources, Al, but then you've also then got competing priorities within them. And then you then have other things that then come in from the outside as well that, you know, take you away from the business objectives and don't allow you to do that. How do you resolve that? Because as a CISO, you know, you're also a politician, not just, you know, looking at the tech side or the way products built, are you?
Yeah, and this is where I think relationships really help a lot.
Mm.
Having relationships with your executive leadership team, open lines of communication, using them as a bouncing board. For example, if you're, you know, let's just say you're in the midst of obtaining a new certification for whether it's, you know, for regulatory purposes or customer ask for it, and you come to a point where you're like, oh, I don't have enough resources now because I have to allocate them to something else. And that's where you bring in those leaders and say, look, you know, here's kind of where we are. Help me prioritize, right? You tell me from a business
Mm.
perspective, what's more important? Is it more important to go get that CSA star? Is it more important to maybe satisfy this one prospect that, you know, we have to do these things to close this deal potentially, and here's the pros and cons. And I've done those exercises many times with leadership, getting down to the sourcing requirement, to the resource requirement, and also to the funding requirement if I need to, you know, buy a new technology to satisfy a specific need. And so using them as a bouncing board and kind of bringing them together, keeping those communication channels open, that's been helping me, because then it's not me making the decision on behalf of the business. It's me getting the business involved to help me make those decisions. And that's an iterative cyclical process. It's not a one-time thing.
No, that makes sense. So you mentioned one very specific thing that we see a lot of, which is, you know, client requirements, because immediately that either becomes a business enabler or a business block. So it obviously gets a good name if we can help the business solve these challenges to onboard a big customer, more features, you know, all those things. But those customers can also be extremely demanding in terms of creating a skew to away from your core business plan, and perhaps even sometimes the models that you put in. How do you deal with that? Because that's really challenging, because you can't say no, or can you?
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying before. You have to reallocate your resources to those efforts. If the businesses, look, let's just take the CRO, for example, Chief Revenue Officer says, look, we have to go close that deal. And tell me what they're asking. And if you tell them, hey, they're asking for X, Y, and Z, it's just like, for example, you know, in a cloud environment, you have single tenant and multi-tenant environments. If a customer is so security conscious and sensitive about their data, if they want a single tenant instance of something, a data store or whatever the case, and it costs X amount of resources and X amount of dollars, then it's our job to be able to quantify that and qualify that in terms of how much time it's going to take, present that to the CRO, and help him and the CFO make those decisions with us. And then, you know, if there's a trade-off, for example, okay, if we do this, then we can't get to these other features, right? And security is right in the mix of things because of, you know, as they build products, we're ingrained in the secure software development lifecycle with them. So it's our resources too that have to get reallocated from a cyber perspective. Then it becomes a discussion. Then it becomes a more of a trade-off discussion in terms of, okay, if we don't do this and this is what's gonna have to take a backseat, are you okay with that? So the full transparency, right? And I think that's the process that we have to continue to nurture and you know, make it more efficient so that when situations like that come up, you're ready to have those discussions. You're not reinventing the wheel in terms of your templates and the type of discussions and who gets involved and who doesn't get involved. You know the players, you know the leaders, you have the template, and you execute, basically make a decision, and you stick with that decision and move forward. So for me, it's almost a no-brainer after a certain point in time. When you start doing this, it becomes automatic because you build muscle memory, you know exactly who to pull. Whereas, you know, I can see other CISOs that don't have the relationship with the executive leadership team, you know, struggling as to whether I should spend time here, resources here, or over here. What's more important? So you have to be in tune and have a pulse as to what your business is asking and what the customers are asking as well.
Right, so you're really elastic with that, whereas you're saying perhaps people are newcomers to being a CISO or don't have so many cycles, for example, or have, you know, gone from certain industry into maybe product, which is so different, don't necessarily have that elasticity. So two things I've picked up from here to play back. One is that strength of relationships are absolutely crucial. And it's not about saying, no, I love what you said. Are you okay with that? You're putting that in their hands, right? That's the psychology of it and the help as well.
Yeah, we're just there to facilitate the discussion. So it's that situation right there. It's a real life situation that becomes a discussion between the revenue officer and the chief product officer, right? And so they all have the same interest at the end of the day. They want to help generate more revenue. They want to keep the company secure. But there's always these trade-offs. And that happens in real life. That happens in our own personal lives. There's trade-offs we have to make. Should we do this or should we do that? Should we go have dinner here or should we go have dinner there? So it's just a natural extension of how you run your life. You just extend it to the business environment and it just falls into place. Yeah, I'm a very practical person. I try to keep things simple and keep the conversation simple and keep it clear and concise. And it's been working out pretty well for me over the past years. So
yeah, but you've always had an approach which I've always respected. But then you have people who are very tech controls focused, for example, and lock it down, and they live in this world of chaos. I mean, there's a lot of CISOs that we interact with that are either from their circumstance or just their organization or their nature in some ways, just in the midst of chaos. How do you, because we'll come on to it later with the kind of the 60 to 65 CISOs you run, but how do you get out of that mentality and, or even if you've just been in a situation when you've landed, as someone said to me, a new CISO role he took on this morning, you know, I've got a dumpster fire here, which he loves, but where do you begin, Al? It's a really highly responsible role, isn't it, in that chaos?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's been many situations where I've been kind of had to parachute in, and I knew the situation I was getting into. And as CISOs, for the most part, and this probably, we're adrenaline junkies. We kind of thrive in that environment, in those situations. So a lot of that is good for us. It's good for our health. Unfortunately, in one way, shape, or form, we can't sit still for the most part. So we love, for the most part, dropping into those situations. And for me, it's doing a quick evaluation, not a full in-depth analysis of what's happening using some kind of framework. It's really your gut feel. Just I'm more of I observe a lot more than I talk, I think, which is good for me because I like to soak everything in, talk to people, listen, very, 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 more than talk, and then kind of evaluate and see where things stand and break things down into smaller pieces, right? And maybe this is my engineering background. I have a tendency of breaking things down into smaller pieces and trying to tackle them one at a time after I prioritize them, whether it's people, process, or technology. And in the last couple of companies, I've had to do all of those. I've had to make changes in terms of personnel. So I have to identify, where I'm going to make the changes and why. I have had to make changes in process and policies and procedures. I had to make changes in terms of the technology stack, where, in some situations, there was a lot of money spent because money was flowing. And unfortunately, those solutions were neither effective nor they had proper coverage, provided proper coverage. And so we had to make some changes for the better. And so breaking these problems down into smaller chunks and smaller pieces and prioritizing them with feedback from the business and your stakeholders is, I think, the way to go. Oh, one other thing, Dan, if I may mention, staying calm and not panicking. I think that's another attribute that CISOs need to build if they don't have it. I can see a lot of folks getting frazzled. Good colleagues, good friends, they get frazzled and they start panicking, and they make decisions that they normally wouldn't have made if they had just stayed calm and done some real critical thinking around what's going on around us, what are the driving forces, and then, like I said, starting to analyze and break things down and prioritize and start tackling those with constant feedback from your stakeholders. But the key is stay calm, don't overreact. If you're going to send that email, hold off on it for a couple of hours, reread it, and then send it. I guarantee you're going to go change that. So especially coming into a new organization, if you're dropped in, you can't burn bridges, the first week. That's just suicide, career suicide.
I really respect what you said about the word calm. it's been a theme on my mind for the last year. And I have been very fortunate to have a number of people in my life who have said to me, because I was always the big adrenaline junkie and, build and create companies and all that kind of stuff. And the thing is, it becomes very addictive, very immersive. And as you say, you love the inputs from everywhere.
Yeah.
But I realized that and the same in cybersecurity specifically, is it a thoughtful, calm nature is, even if you're not that by nature, maybe we get there as we get older, but that is so effective. And someone I was talking to last night, we've both been reading an interesting book called Hyperfocus by a guy called Chris Bailey, and he defines zoning of thoughts into hyperfocus, focusing on one particular set of tasks, scatter focus, which is more your creativity, and then that kind of danger zone for the CISO, which is the multitasking, the dreaded multitasking. So have you always been good at that kind of focus, Al, and keeping calm, or have you developed that as a skill and a style?
A lot of it is how you're wired, honestly, as well as, things that you learn over time, what's worked, what hasn't worked. You can't be an adrenaline junkie. Like, it's a good dose of that is healthy for us CISOs, honestly. Otherwise, we drive ourselves crazy not doing anything. But you have to balance that with being also calm when you need to, and not overreacting, and breaking a problem down into smaller chunks and smaller pieces to be able to address the broader problem. So from that perspective, I think you have to balance both. You can't be one or the other. Otherwise, you're too calm and laid back, and you can't react to something quickly, then you're going to lose. If you're too fast and not thinking critically, you overreact, then you're also going to lose. So you have to be able to balance those two things out. And they can't, you can't operate like that, with both of them. So yeah, I think you have to do both. You have to be able to get in terms of balancing both. They complement each other, I think, honestly. It's the kind of the yin and the yang, right? It's those two forces coming together, making you who you are.
I totally agree. It's very interesting, actually, because when you do these talks, you learn so much from people. And there are a lot of people, I've met, that they do sit in the garden with their feet in the grass, in nature, thinking, and then they go do some crazy high-tech job. But it gives them that critical time where they reflect and get stock about where they're taking the strategy of what they're having to do. And it's really interesting when you ask people about this, because usually you have to volunteer it, because it's not the sort of thing people just cough up. But that kind of installation of calm is, I think we forget we're human beings as well. And the polymath of the CISO, and to be everything in so many areas, is an incredibly demanding challenge, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I go back as you were talking here. I reflect back a lot of times to my college days, and this is a long time ago, obviously, but I still remember this. I think one of the courses that really helped me in my higher education was it wasn't an engineering course or anything like that. It was a course in critical thinking, and I had to take it, and I had no idea what it was going to be about. And it was one of those electives where, like, it's kind of the better one of all of them out there, so let's just take a chance. But it was the best course I ever took, because today it's helped me figure out how to think critically when you are faced with some kind of adversity or some kind of significant issue in front of you, whether it's business, family, friends, whatever the case. I mean, I don't want to get into the details of what you would do, but I encourage people to, like, kind of just pick something up in terms of critical thinking, and see if it's for you. If it could really help you break something major problem you have in front of you, break it down into smaller pieces, and be able to think of all the different aspects of the issue, where it came from, where things stand, and how to manage it, how to confine it, how to contain it. But that really helped me a lot, and I reflect back at that whenever I come across something significant that I have to deal with.
That is seriously good advice. I do have one kind of skew of a question here, though, Al. Critical thinking, and then CISOs who use frameworks. You see a lot of people take, their first 90 days, the 120-day plan, they roll out whatever their favorite framework is, which I guess has merits, but it also can remove that critical thinking. What's your thoughts on this? Because everyone's different. They all have different styles.
Yeah, I'm just from experience, and I've been in large companies, small companies, mid-sized companies, existing security programs, no security programs, highly over passive aggressive, very laid back, you name it, over the past 25 years, either as a leader or as an individual contributor. And I've always found that 30, 60, 90-day plans go out the window kind of like the second week. So you can go in with a plan, which is, I'm not saying don't do it. I think you should do it. It just shows that you have a thought process, you have an approach, you have a philosophy, you have something in mind. But just know that there's a good possibility that you're gonna have to throw it out the window the second week. So Snapdocs, when I joined, I had my 30, 60, 90-day plan. I created it even before going in, knowing a little bit about the company because I went through an executive search firm. But the second week, I was hit with a customer audit that was kind of going sideways. And so and then I had to deal with another prospect who we needed to close, and that was taking 8 months. And keep in mind, this is financial services, so the sales cycles are pretty long. But nonetheless, we couldn't get past the security hurdle, and so I had to literally drop in with a parachute and fix all that, and that took 90 days.
Right. Okay.
I couldn't like figure out my team situation, figure out the technology situation I was talking about. So I had to deal with that. And so if you're not ready, you're stuck to your 90-day plan. Guess what? You're gonna have a pissed off CRO, you're gonna have a pissed off CEO, you're gonna have a pissed off CFO because you're not moving the needle in terms of helping win deals, and you're not satisfying existing customers because you have an audit in hand. And their CIO wants to talk to you of all things because he has issues, concerns. So anyways, my point is those plans go out the window most of the time. And I don't put a whole lot of stock in them, but just having them, knowing that you can execute something when you do have the time, whether it's implementing CSF or 853 or trying to align with ISO or whatever else from SEC. You have to have those plans in place, but just know that they're as good as the paper they're written on. Be ready to pivot at any point in time.
You to bring it alive, don't you, and adapt, and it's a good basis. So this is a nice segue into another part of your life, which I think is really fascinating, which is you're in the CISO investment syndicate. And if you can, Al, share with us what that is, what your objectives were when you set it up, but also I have some very specific questions around when you spend a little time with people, how can you affect change as that kind of fractional CISO within that function? So tell me about it first. What does it all stand for, and why did you set it up?
Yeah, so it was honestly by accident. A few colleagues of mine were sitting around 6 years ago. Let's just go back 6 years ago. We actually did something else where we really wanted to help founders and early stage companies as early adopters of technology. We wanted to use these technologies. We wanted to bring them into our environments and take advantage of them because they were at the cutting edge of innovation and thinking of solving old and new problems a different way. But they couldn't pass our third-party risk management process. They couldn't even answer a questionnaire. And so we said, look, we need to help them, right? Not get around, but have enough security in place so that they pass these hurdles that their prospects or customers throw at them, large or small. And so we built securityforstartups.com, which is a framework that they can adopt, very simple stuff that they can implement, like multi-factor authentication, access control, turn on encryption, for their S3 buckets and things like that. Very simple stuff, menu driven, to help them, and it did. And so when we're done with that, we got really good feedback from these founders. We said, okay, what else can we do? Well, we said we advise these companies as well. Can we do something together where we take advantage of our collective brain power, the network effect, and help them with their journey to bring viable products to market that we can actually use, but at the same time, ask for an opportunity to co-invest with them, right? And so we bounced this off a few founders, and they really loved the idea. It was something new. Nobody was doing it the way we were anticipating and doing it, and so we started doing it. We brought in a couple of companies. We started helping them, and they started to, give us an opportunity to invest with them and kind of go through that journey with them. So at the end of the day, that group of 4 turned out to be 60, 65, and we have to cap it because it's getting a little bit big, and when it gets too big, it's hard to manage. So we capped it at 60, 65. There's a couple that I belong to. The first one I'm talking about here is SVCI, Silicon Valley CISO Investments, great group of people, very dynamic, different backgrounds, et cetera, both male, female. We try to keep a good balance. The goal is really not to act as a venture capital firm or company or just pure investment. The goal really is to help these founders bring viable products to market that we can actually use, and then we back them. So we do anything from sourcing to diligence as a traditional VC would do, although we look at them from a different lens, unlike traditional VCs. But the real value is not the money that we give them, the collective money that we give them. It's really the validation that they need, that they want to come to us for, because money is still relatively available if you know where to look, even in this day and age.
Yes.
But it's that validation, and the work really starts post investment. It starts, we have a la carte menu where the founders and their team can take advantage of. We create a Slack channel for them. We're in constant communication. We even assign somebody to kind of facilitate the interactions between their team and our team. And at the end of the day, we help them with product market fit, go-to-market strategies, amplifying their social media posts, joining them webinars, podcasts, introducing them to our network. Some of us even, navigating any potential conflicts of interest within our organization. We even bring them in for design partnerships and things like that. And we're very careful how we do that. We have a set of standards and policies internally to help CISOs navigate that, because it can get very tricky. So we encourage open communication with the chief compliance officer, CEO, your boss, CTO, CIO, whoever you report to. So we take care of all that because we know that you can get in sticky situations. And then after that fact, they like us so much, sometimes they allow us to invest in subsequent rounds and open it up to new members who maybe didn't have that opportunity to invest. And if you look at the website, not going to mention names, there's a couple of 2 or 3 unicorns that we've invested in, and not saying their successes because of us. They've had good founding teams, good concept, good ideas, good execution. We're just there to help facilitate that and be a bouncing board for them. And so that's where the real value is for them.
I think that's extraordinary. But a question I had is, and that sort of, I don't want to coin it fractional, but if you have that kind of limited amount of time that you can spend with someone, obviously in former roles and your current, you're focused, your attention is on the org. And even then, there's just so much going on, isn't there? So when you've only got short periods of time, what do you do? What's the secret kind of set of algorithms you've kind of landed on, things you found are most effective, trying to give your knowledge out, but encourage these smart startups to adopt this while also balancing their need for growth and their funding and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think every person kind of has their strengths and I don't want to say weaknesses, but let's just focus on strengths. And so you have to kind of figure out what that is for you. For me, I'm pretty broad, I think, in terms of breadth and what I can offer. These early stage companies. Sometimes, when I work with them, whether it's formal or informal, sometimes it's working on marketing. I've seen enough security companies, large and small, with their marketing campaigns. And I know what works and what attracts me to them and what doesn't attract me to them. And, most of the time, my take is the same as my peers, especially within SVCI, because we're a collective. We think alike for the most part, and we come to consensus. And that's very difficult to do with 65 A-type, personnel. Everybody has their opinions, but at the end of the day, we do things in a democratic way and we come to a consensus. And so for us, it becomes a matter of what are we good at? Who can help with what? For me personally, like I said, I'm pretty broad in terms of what I can do, where I can offer help, whether it's pricing, whether it's helping him improve their security posture, acting as like as a fractional or VC so for them. Putting the CMO hat on and helping them with marketing. And hey, this is what works with
Wow.
CISO. Are you a top-down approach? Are you a bottom-up? Are you a middle-out? What's your ideal customer profile? What do you think it is? No, I don't think it's that. I think it's this, and this is why. And so you have to be really dynamic. And I don't know if a lot of CISOs can do that, and that's okay. You just have to find out what your niche is. Maybe you're good at, features. Maybe you're good at building features, helping them build features and testing those out. Or maybe, like I said, you're good at marketing as a CISO, or you're just a good practitioner. You know AWS inside out, and you can help them secure their environment. So those are all the services that we provide, and we don't ask anything extra for that. And
That's
then, like I
amazing.
said, also there are opportunities as CISOs to directly advise companies, and a lot of us do that. And that's another avenue to be able to help these companies. Again, focus on what you're good at, and prioritize, obviously your day job. But this is not our day job, right? I don't do this as a day job. This is something that keeps me motivated and passionate about the industry and helps me give back so that others can, take advantage of these capabilities that are coming to market. We want the next Orca, we want the next Wiz, we want the next Palo Alto. And I think it's our job as practitioners to help kind of frame that in terms of the market, and bring those kind of companies at the forefront, because there are really great, entrepreneurs out there that have great ideas. They just need a little bit of help in terms of execution, and that validation that they need, that, hey, I'm onto something here. Let me take a chance, because that's how, Palo Alto was born. That's how Checkpoint was born, going back, in the days. That's how Wiz, Orca, Drata, all these companies were born.
Absolutely extraordinary help. I mean, you've got a serious passion and some serious energy to do that on top of the day job. And as you say, that sort of stuff keeps you alive. I have a concluding question, because we're running low on time now. 2024, we're here now. It always feels like a nice fresh start, mentally, emotionally. Looking forward into the year. As a CISO, what's your mind on this year?
It's an election year in the United States. Typically, that's a good sign. But with the headwinds that we've had in 2023, and we're still seeing significant layoffs in tech, I don't think anybody can put their finger on it, whether it's in the economy, on the social side, what 2024 is going to look like. I think it's going to be a very dynamic, changing, some for good, some for the bad year. I think from a cyber perspective, we're obviously going to see the same trend we saw in 2023. There's going to be more breaches. There's going to be more emphasis from a regulatory perspective, whether it's AI or software supply chain or the SEC. I think it's going to be a lot more scrutiny, some for the better, some for the worse. And then in terms of technology in itself, I think generative AI is going to continue to be at the forefront. Believe it or not, there's still naysayers out there. I talk to them on a weekly basis through whether it's seminars, webinars, whatever. There's still naysayers out there that don't believe AI is going to change a thing. And then there's experts that are coming out saying AI is going to significantly change how we work, how we operate, how we do security, how we build companies, how we hire. And so that remains to be seen. I don't know. I don't know how big an impact it's going to have. Is it going to be mainstream? Is it already mainstream? That's another area to keep an eye on, and that's going to impact security, right? There's a lot of companies now that are either helping to secure AI in these models, or they're using AI in these models to improve the efficiency, the effectiveness of their products and services.
Yeah.
And there's a few things in between. And as an operator and as an investor, I've had to navigate both of those ends and trying to figure out, okay, what makes sense? Is this, just fluff, or is this real? Is there a problem? Or are we just trying to create solutions for problems that don't exist today? So that remains to be seen. So I think all in all, I think it's going to be an exciting year. I don't think there's been a year like this in the past that I could remember in my 25 years plus that I've been in this business. And that's the exciting thing about it, is you have to react, unfortunately, sometimes, where where the market takes you, where the adversaries take you, where the economy takes you, where politics take you. It's all intertwined in one big pot of goulash, as I call it.
Absolutely. I think I'll replay this section and just, digest some of those points myself. It's really cool. Hey, Al Ghous, CISO of Snapdocs, always interesting to talk with you. Thank you for sharing your time, and I look forward to seeing you do another session at some point like this. It's really interesting. Thank you.
I would love it. Thanks for having me, Dan. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.